Well, welcome everybody. This is our first ever attempt at a podcast right here live at our Studio B, that's B-E-E, here at Wilson's Orchard and Farm. It's a beautiful, beautiful, unbelievably nice August day here. And I'm Paul Rasch, one of the owners of this mess, and joined here today by Kyle Tester. Kyle came to us, 4 years ago, something?
40 or
40, maybe 44
like.
or something like that. Yep. Long time ago in a distant, far away place. Kyle came to us from Iowa State University, where he majored in horticulture. And we've done our best to kind of teach him something after all that cyclone learning that he did. And we got some dang good cider here. It's going down pretty good on a sunny day. So we're going to talk a little bit today about sort of how we started the year, what we've done, the few things that have gone right, the many things that have gone wrong, and we'll see where that gets us.
I don't know if I remember anything about 2020. It's pretty bland
Yeah,
so far.
Yeah, it's just been a year where nothing unusual has happened. So we kind of started off the year the first thing people should understand, of course, is that orcharding, like most farming, is a very seasonal business. So we get done with all the hubbub of harvest, and then by the middle of November, early December, everything's kind of wrapped up. And of course, everybody says, "Well, what do you do? You don't have nothing to do." We do find things to do, but it does slow down quite a bit.
And that's coming from the guy who's not out in the -10 wind chill pruning.
Yeah, well, I did it. I actually used to do that, but us people with a certain level of maturity, we don't have to do that kind of shit anymore. So, that's just one of the advantages of getting old and feeble. So, where was I? Anyway, we started thinking in January, February a little bit about envisioning where we want to be in the next 5-10 years with a farm, and we came up with a kind of blueprint. And one of the things that struck us is that, we have quite a ways to go on developing into a really, truly sustainable operation, both economically, but equally or more important ecologically. How do we sort of start to amp up our game on that? And we started to envision, number one, a move away from a monoculture. It doesn't really matter whether your monoculture is corn, soybeans, cattle, or apples. It's still a monoculture. And we had introduced a couple of other crops, sheep and pumpkins and stuff like that, but it's still a fairly feeble effort in terms of diversification. So one of the things we wanted to do is focus on diversification. And the other thing is to start to really move aggressively towards a more ecological approach to controlling pests, controlling weeds, and things like that. And we still want to be able to make money because, people like Kyle, Jesus, you got to pay him every damn, well, not every week. We don't pay him every week, but, you got to pay him every now and again. And then, it adds up after a while. A penny here and a penny there. Pretty soon it's $1. So, yeah. Anyway, so one of the things, so we talked early, right, Kyle, about, how we could diversify, and that has a economic impact as well as a ecological impact. And economically, we want to diversify partly to expand our season. We used to be open here at the farm August, September, October, and then kind of close the doors. Then we added Rapid Creek Cidery and the Event Center, and they were open every month of the year except January. They opened in February. And we kind of wanted the farm to start to be open longer as well. But in order to do that, we needed more crops, and we wanted more crops to diversify. So what do? Over Kyle's, I would say, lukewarm excitement about this, we planted a bunch of strawberries last year. How'd that go? How'd the strawberry thing go?
Other than picking the hottest day of the year to plant them, not terrible bad. Most of them are still alive anyway, so better than expected at this point, I think. But, yeah.
So walk us through what we did. What did we do? When did we plant? How did we plant? What did we do with the strawberries?
Well, so we do June bearing strawberries here, and we're doing them on plastic. We're not the traditional matted row where you have the same plot for 10 years and you till in between and it just grows right on the ground. So we planted on raised beds on plastic and then put single plants into little holes in the plastic. So traditionally then you'd fill out the row with runners and the strawberries would cover and make a mat. Well, we just want them to fill that little section. So we have a bunch of little plants that we want to try to keep little, try to keep from runnering, and hopefully have that about 4 years or so before we take it out. But the idea behind the plastic is just to reduce weed pressure, reduce the amount of herbicides we might have to spray, and with that we can also run drip irrigation under it and conserve water, not having to overhead irrigate or nothing like that.
Yeah, and that scared the hell out of me. I mean, thinking about putting black plastic in this Iowa sun, I just thought these things are going to fry, right? I mean,
yeah, especially since we planted them right on that.
Yeah.
And
it was like right after July the 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wilting hot. And you can, for those of you silly enough to be interested in this, go look at the DAF, Dumb Apple Farmer Talks Talk, where we were planting strawberries. You'll see. I mean, it was.
You could really tell the heat was getting to Paul. I don't know how much sense he was making, but
yeah. Well, we were all a bit giggly at that point. I mean, we needed more of this cold brew stuff.
But anyway, so yeah, we then planted the last year. They took that whole year to grow. We covered them over the winter and got the first crop off them here a little later than we had anticipated. We did get hit with a frost. May the 9th kind of bit us in the bum on the apples as well, but I think the strawberries, especially the early varieties, took it in the chin a little harder. And ideally, you'd want to be harvesting towards the end of May. I don't think we harvested our first one till second week of June.
Yeah,
and it was pretty measly at that.
10th to 12th or something in that range. Yeah.
But then we have few varieties to get us from end of May through beginning of July, and that's typically what these June bearing varieties will get you each year. And then kind of repeat it all over again. They kind of go dormant. You grow them up the rest of the year, cover them for the winter, and start the process all over again.
So one of the things that was kind of fun about the strawberries, first of all, we'll be getting better at strawberries as we go on, but I'm just really impressed with the job that you guys did, and you in particular, Kyle. I mean, he's lorded over them like a mother hen, and these things have come through brilliantly. We had a really nice bloom, and then, some dum-dum that looks a lot like me decided, since it was early May, that we didn't really have to invest in overhead frost protection. Generally, strawberries are protected from spring frost, by sprinkling. You sprinkle water on them fast enough, then the temperature never drops below that freezing point of water if you keep enough water on them. And I had sort of marked up a system that I was going to invest in. And then I thought, well, it's May already. It's not going to freeze anymore. There's no frost in the forecast. Let's just bag that and save that many thousands of dollars. And then, of course, May the 9th comes and we get 25 degrees here?
Yeah, 25 at the low spot, and it dropped like a rock. I mean, it went from 32 to 25 in an instant, which when it does it that quickly, that's just another adding insult to injury at that point. So.
And there was a hell of a lot of injury. I mean, on the strawberries, it was just unbelievable. You cut every single bloom that they were just starting to bloom, if I remember right. We had like 10%
the ones at the top.
bloom.
Yeah, the ones at the top of the hill were a little further along, obviously, but I think it was about 10. I remember I was checking the apples, and you went and checked the strawberries, and you gave me a call, and it's like, well, it's done.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Give up.
Yeah, there was. It was a Jack Daniels kind of morning. I mean, that's all you could do is shake your head and head for the liquor cabinet, because it was pretty ugly. Every bloom you cut was black inside. Every bud that would have a bloom was black inside. I mean, the plants looked beat up. They just looked terrible. And so we thought, well, strawberries are done. Apples sustained some damage, right? So we have 2 orchards, and one had quite a bit more damage than another. One's a little better fruit site. But overall, we probably ate a good half of the bloom that was coming up at that point. Well, I guess we had set most of we were sort of at early petal fall, if I remember right, May the 9th.
No. Well, yeah, I think about there.
It seems like about 4 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, lots happened.
Yeah. So anyway, that was our first adventure, was a May the 9th frost, and that kind of upset the apple crop a bit, although, you know, the old timers in Michigan where I grew up would say you only need 10% of the bloom to make a full crop of apples. So weren't too worried about it, although some varieties that had bloomed and set fruit earlier seemed to take it harder. The ginger golds and those kind of fruit seemed to take it harder. Galas, for some reason I still don't understand, went pretty well. So it actually did a lot of thinning for us, and we did very little thinning this year of apples. So that was the first kind of big change of plans that went on. We thought we had lost the strawberries. Strawberries came back with a sort of second bloom, much to our surprise, and we did have a crop. Maybe what would you say, 30-40%?
Well, I think the later varieties, it was probably 60-70% even, but the early variety, I think we probably got maybe just 15% of that. So it really depended on, you know, what stage they were at. But I'd say overall probably half of what we were expecting, I'd say. Maybe less. Even.
Maybe less, yeah.
Yeah, 40%.
And then, of course, us being us, we're not just picking our first crop of strawberries. We had also spent the 2-3 months ahead of that completely revamping the farm market, and we were going to, of course, be open the 1st of June. Well, 1st of June turned into 10th of June, then it's the 12th of June, and then, well, what did we open, the 18th of June or something like that? So the first week or so, when the berries really came on, we were picking like crazy. We had to pick them ourselves, I should say. You had to pick them yourself, and then we sold them in the supermarkets and things like that. We did have 2 big days of picking, and that's one thing that we found is people are dang interested, especially in COVID City. People were pretty interested in coming out and picking strawberries. We had some ferociously big interest and long lines of people wanting to pick, right?
And, gonna need to find some flat land somewhere around here.
Yeah. There's one thing you'll see about this farm is that there just ain't a lot of flat ground around here. It's good enough for apples, but growing these flatland crops just ain't going to be very easy any place here. So strawberries came and went, and you know, we did pretty good. We got the farm market open, and strawberries still look good. Then he then went and mowed them all off, and So I guess the whole idea, right, is to keep the plants fairly small, results in bigger berries. That's what you're shooting for, right?
Yeah, you mow them off also to you can disrupt certain disease cycles. They just build up disease, the leaves do, over time, and if you mow them off and let them and blow them to the side, they kind of interrupts a disease cycle, and the new growth generally comes back a little bit more disease-free, which all fruits seem to really like disease. It really clings to them like crazy. So,
yeah, and that is one of the things that we've found. Disease is not necessarily our friend. I think really, you know, if you look at it, I think there's been a lot of attention to insect control and stuff in organic systems and, let's say, non-chemical treatments and stuff. But really on the disease side is a far bigger challenge, I believe, at this point. for us.
Yeah.
A good case in point is with apples. So there was a surprisingly smart effort on the part of the USDA years and years ago. I think it started in the 60s, where they decided to take this crabapple, native crabapple, which was basically immune to the major disease of apples is apple scab, and crossbreed that with some commercial varieties, predominantly McIntosh and Jonathan. They put Golden Delicious, Red Rome, a bunch of other stuff in the mix, but that was to bring in certain properties. But predominantly what they wanted, McIntosh is like a magnet for apple scab. And so they wanted to find out, could they develop a McIntosh type apple, which doesn't get apple scab. You don't have to spray for it. And they did. They developed some pretty decent fruit, right? The first generation was so-so. There's varieties like Liberty that came out that was pretty good. But a lot of the stuff like Prima, they all started with, a lot of the early ones started with PRI because it was Purdue, Rutgers, and Illinois that started this program. And so a lot of them were Prima, Priscilla, things like that, Pristine.
That's a good apple.
Yeah, and Pristine is good. Liberty came out of that too, and that was pretty good. But a lot of that other stuff is just, Prima and Priscilla, yeah, all you can say is they're red and they're not horrible.
They resemble an apple somewhat.
They're something like an apple. But the later generations of that, the Gold Rush and Crimson Crisp and some of these other wine crisps that have come out are just, they're not just good because they're disease resistant. They're freaking good apples just to eat by themselves. This Goldfinch here is made with Gold Rush. It's an apple that makes a great pie. It eats well. It stores well. You can store this thing for 4 or 5 months in your refrigerator.
Oh, speaking of which, you have a stack of 4 crates back in one of the coolers. I just found.
There's still Gold Rush back there?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It said Paul's stack. I don't know if they quite store 11 months, but
well, that's
a little wilty, but more juicy than I thought they'd be.
Yeah? Huh. Well, that's kind of exciting. There could be other things in that stack that might make it more exciting, but anyways, yeah, stashes are always fun. I know where I was going with that. So these varieties came up, the second and third generation of these varieties came up, and they were and are disease resistant. They do not get apple scab. They don't. And most of them are pretty good against fire blight as well, which is the sort of number 2 public enemy for appledom. But the issue we have is, so you don't have to spray fungicides and stuff for apple scab, but here in Iowa, summer diseases, right? We've just had a hell of a time with that.
Yeah, it seems to be getting worse and worse, and that's kind of what everybody's saying. So these diseases, they're mostly rots, black rot, bitter rot. There's some white rot, all sorts. Traditionally, they've been more of a problem down in Virginia and the mid-Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
And hot, humid weather, and it seems did you have a problem with them when you first came?
No,
Yeah.
We'd never. And honestly, I think we've had less problem with apple scab. Growing up in Michigan, where it's moist and kind of cool, it's perfect scab conditions almost all the time during scab season. But we never really had much. Oh, you get some sooty blotch and fly speck and some of those superficial summer diseases. But the black rot, we knew about it, but bitter rot, white rot, there wasn't much of that stuff. It does seem to be getting worse and worse.
Well, yeah, and it likes the hot, humid weather, and that's kind of what, with changing in climate patterns, that they're saying we're going to have to deal with. So, it's just another challenge, I guess.
Yeah.
Moving out of the scab and into something else.
Yeah. So there's the next challenge is to develop summer disease resistant or the rot resistant varieties. That would be a good thing. If anybody out there with pocket full of money and influence in Washington can get something done on that, we'd greatly appreciate it. We're not going to sort of...
Well, there are all cultural controls you can do, but it's mainly picking up fruit and getting rid of the mummies left over, pruning out any cankers you find. But the problem is you can look for 100 years to the apple orchard, and you're never going to find every single one of the cankers. So it is a challenge. There are cultural things you can do to reduce it, but that's just it. It just reduces it, I guess.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is get somebody into Congress to lobby to allow animals back into the orchard so they can clean up the orchard florists, huh?
Yeah. Well, now you're going to get me started here. Yeah, so, in the orchards of old, there were animals in the orchard, but of course, we've become such a sanitation-obsessed culture that anything that sort of eats up front and deposits out the back is not considered appropriate for anything close to food, which is kind of funny since so much of our food does exactly that. But yeah, no, there's a big taboo about animals in orchards, and that's unfortunate. Partly because, just look at, the May the 9th thing was the frost. That was the first thing. And then we had this whole COVID thing, which I don't know, some aliens brought that from outer space or something. I don't know what happened there. But so COVID sort of disrupted our lives in some ways on a personal level, I guess, as much as anything. And of course, we have a restaurant here and a wedding events venue, which of course has gone to zero basically now. But on the farm, it really, people seem interested to still come out to the farm. It's an outdoor experience. People feel comfortable with that, I think. So it hasn't really affected us as directly there on the farm in terms of the numbers of people that we're seeing coming through. If anything, I would say people are appreciative and excited to get their kids outdoor. So as we go forward, COVID, we don't know what to expect for apple season, but so far, knock on wood, we're in pretty good shape that way. But yeah, so after COVID, then the latest thing here, what was it, a week?
10th.
Was it the 10th?
It was the 10th.
Yeah. So frost on the 9th and the high winds on the 10th.
The derecho. You didn't know that?
I did know derecho. I was trying to remember the word, and I was sure I'd butcher it.
I think I missed the day where that, did that thing where, the derecho, you didn't know that was a thing?
Yeah.
It's like
that
they
was
just started
exactly
saying,
right.
yeah, the derecho moved through. It's like,
yeah.
Wait, what? What is a derecho? I was supposed to remember that? I don't
yeah.
know.
So this wind comes through. It's somewheres, depends on who you believe, somewheres between 80 and 8,000 miles an hour. And it toppled. So the number I've been using, maybe 300 of our trees went down. You think it's more or less? I counted 120 at my place.
And it's probably twice that over here, so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So.
Well, and yeah.
So we were going to pick the apples off these trees that have toppled over and make a cider out of them. And the cider maker, Greg, says, we'll call it derecho. And I'm like, what in the hell is he on about? What the hell's a derecho? It sounded like a pair of pants or something. And turns out that's a real thing.
Yeah, the newscast just assumed you knew it. And I was like, why are we going to the right? Why is this storm going to the right? I don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it did tremendous damage, and there's no way you want to be making a light of it, because it significantly affected people's lives up there, especially north of us in Cedar Rapids. I was driving up there north of Mount Vernon yesterday, and it's truly staggering the amount of grain bins. I was in the country, but the number of power poles that, not these little 8-10 inch power poles, but them great big suckers, the laminated ones, they're probably like 2 foot across, and it just snapped them off. So it was pretty significant. But yeah, so we had the derecho come through and take about, 20-25% of our crop. I don't know, maybe more.
I think more like 40 or something.
Do you? Yeah. Well, Kyle always has a better estimate of that stuff. He's more cautious than I am. I'm going to say I'm sticking with 25, and we're we'll see what happens. But anyways, so
Andre says 99% of it fell off.
Andre is our resident Eeyore. So, yeah. We should mention that we are blessed with 4 guys that help us from the Ukraine on this H2A program. And these are some of the best guys you'll ever meet in your life, although they do rather pick on Kyle with lots of practical jokes. And you can't believe much of what they say when they call with an emergency because they're usually just pulling your leg. But they're great guys. We'll try and get them on for a podcast at one of these points. And we'll learn a little bit about life in the Ukraine and what they think about this funny world we inhabit over here. I think they are. Yeah, this is like their 4th season. Am I right, or is this their 3rd season?
No, it'll be... No, 4th fall. This is their 4th fall.
4th fall. Okay. So this, yeah. And you do see them kind of changing their perspective a little bit. You know, I mean, you come over here from the Ukraine or a lot of places in America is this bright city on the hill. You know, everything is great. The supermarkets are stocked. Food's cheap. Energy's cheap. You know, people have nice cars and stuff like that. And slowly, though, you can see them sort of getting it, that life's not perfect over here either. So that's kind of interesting to watch them see that. So anyway, so we digress. So we had strawberries, and then we had a bit of a lull. Now we're just getting into apple season. What we're picking Burgundy this weekend, which is one of our favorites. I mean, Burgundy, for those of you... Now, if you guys are going to watch this podcast on a regular basis, you better get your apple game up, okay? So we grow a lot of varieties around here, and we'll be tossing them out like sand to the wind. But Burgundy...
So many apples on the cider pile?
Yeah, like so many apples on the cider pile. Burgundy's one came out of New York. It's Chug Wilson, who's a character in and of himself. And Chug, here's a snort of water to you. He wasn't a drinker, but I'll just take a drink for him. Chug Wilson, bless his heart, passed away this year. Ripe old age of 90, I believe. Maybe 91. And he started this along with his wife, Joyce. And he used to say of Burgundy, which is where we were talking, it's like a Jonathan, but it's bigger, better, and harder. And he would tell that over and over again, and it does qualify on each of those scores. I don't know that it's necessarily better. I love a Jonathan fresh off the tree, but Burgundy is nice and tart like a Jonathan. It's it really comes on right about this time of the year. This year it hasn't been a big problem, but some years it gets, as its name implies, so dark red that it will actually sizzle and boil in a hot sunny day, and then be just junk. But if you catch them right, they are just a joy to behold. And man, you make a pie with Burgundy or our turnovers, oh my God, that's worth eating. Yep. So Burgundy is on. What else are we picking? Gravenstein.
Yep,
right.
Got a little bit of Gravenstein.
Yeah, old Russian variety. Gravenstein, for those of you uninitiated, maybe you're from California, that used to be kind of like the official apple of California. In fact, Steve Jobs, you know, that guy, I don't know, he had something to do with Apple too. He used to work on a Gravenstein farm. That's where he got the idea of the name, I'm told. And Gravenstein was a big apple in Northern California and big part of the canning and baking industry out there. Gravenstein. What else are we picking? Red Free, Bonner.
We have Red Free in the store from our other orchard. Last week, a vicious pack of apple pickers cleaned everything up over here.
Oh, did they? All right.
So we have some in the store yet, but nothing out picking. We got Bonner.
Funny variety, Bonner, right? I
mean, it's loaded one year, nothing the next year, and luckily we seem to be on a pattern where half of our Bonners are on one year and the other half off the other year, so we always seem to have it, but it doesn't get too big, but it's certainly loaded with fruit, and
It's not bad. I've come to
Yeah.
appreciate Bonner a
I
little
wasn't
bit, actually.
blown away with it the first time I had it, but yeah, this year it seems to have a lot better flavor than normal, and that's probably if you don't like a tart apple, that'll be the best one for you that we have this year. It's got a good amount of sugar to it, so.
Yeah. And then we're going to jump into Ginger Gold, which, of course, is like one of the best, probably the kickoff to the mid-season apples, the way I think of Ginger Gold. It's like, all right, the early apples, you start with low dyes real early, and they get into Jersey Max and different Paula Red kind of Macintosh wannabes on the early side. And they all tend to be tart. There are some exceptions. They tend to get soft pretty easy. They tend to be greenish apples that have a bit of red to them. And they do great things. I mean, they make great applesauce. They're good for eating, but they generally don't keep well.
They're great for that last hour before they fall on the ground. Got to catch them right.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah, they're a bit like a peach, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't taste great before they're ripe, but they don't last long after they're ripe. So yeah, you got to catch them at the right time. Yeah. So, but we're getting through that and into this.
Oh, did you have any of the Williams Pride this year?
I just had 2 so far.
Did you? Yeah. I mean, I think we're out of them now at the store, but they had a real tropical quality this year.
That's interesting, and apples are so interesting to be around one year to the next. We grow a variety here we call Song of September, which is really that way. I mean, one year you taste that and you're just like, wow, this is like loaded with cinnamon. And a lot of years it has a lot of sort of fennel, anise kind of notes to it.
Last year was cherry.
Yeah, and they can be cherry. I mean, Blondie's another one. I mean, some days you taste mango, some days you taste banana. It's wild. Yeah, I mean, anybody that isn't a fan of apples just doesn't know enough about apples or hasn't been around, haven't had enough experience. So anyway, we're kind of getting into the mid-season stuff, Ginger Gold and then Galas and then Honeycrisp, the Coke of appledom. So that's all coming up pretty soon, and we'll charge along. So what have we learned this year? Anything?
I'm still processing it, I guess. It'll take me a while. Oh, I don't know. I guess just the best laid plans, man.
That's exceptional.
The best laid plans. Learn to just accept what you can't change and try to keep going.
Yeah. That's remarkably sage of you. Yeah, that is right. It has been a year that we have been thrown wrench after wrench after wrench, and I think we've done okay, but certainly the apple crop is a lot less than we'd have liked it to have been. The strawberry crop was less than we'd have liked it to have been, but on the other hand, people seem interested to come out, and we're getting good traffic through the place. None of us got hurt so far with COVID or high winds or low temps or anything, so we can all be happy with that.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Cheers. Damn, you're slow, aren't you?
Well,
that's
what did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned that I think lesson 1 would be the same. Like, the best laid plans are just that. They're just plans, and you've got to be able to adapt. I learned, and this is not a new lesson actually to me, and I think this will be rather unsurprising, is things don't go as quickly as you think. Building this Studio B didn't work as quick as we thought. We got a new smokehouse going. Everything took a lot longer than we thought. And I think the thing that the good lesson I learned this year is that there's often silver linings. You just can't let it kind of ruin your day. You can't let it ruin your game. Stick with it. Just chug through it sometimes, and hopefully, something will come of it. That's that's a bright spot. And so always look at the bright side of life, right?
There you go.
All right, so that's about it for this go round. If you're not sleeping by now or totally repost, let us know what you think. If you got some things that you'd like to know about our farm or about farming in general or about
Shouldn't they ask
cider.
someone else about that?
Well, that's probably true. But if you got nobody else to ask, you can come give us a shout. Email or I don't know, any of that newfangled stuff, Facebook and all that crap. You can do any of that stuff and get a hold of us, I think. And let us know. But thanks a lot for giving us a bit of your time, and we hope you enjoyed it. Come back, see us again. Better yet, come back, see us in person, because we're a lot better looking than we appear on this video thing. I'm sure of that. Cheers.